Stephanie White's sudden presence around Team USA hasn't just raised eyebrows, it's raised alarms, especially among insiders who believe her inclusion could signify more than just coaching help. The skepticism took a sharp turn when Sue Bird was put on the spot about White's role, and instead of a full endorsement, Bird's reaction sparked concern. It's not just about White herself, but what her presence represents, the kind of internal maneuvering that can fracture a team before it even hits the court. For program prepping for global competition.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
Every appointment matters. And this one, it's ringing all the wrong bells, just as Caitlin Clark is stepping onto the national stage. The skepticism took a sharp turn when Sue Bird was put on the spot about White's role. And instead of a full endorsement, Bird's reaction sparked concern. It's not just about White herself, but what her presence represents, the kind of internal maneuvering that can fracture a team before it even hits the court. For program prepping for global competition, every appointment matters. And this one, it's ringing all the wrong bells, just as Caitlin Clark is stepping onto the nationals. With Clark expected to redefine the team's future, her integration should be straightforward. But now it's mired in speculation about who's really pulling the strings and whether this is about winning or preserving control. As questions grow louder about favoritism, internal allegiances, and possible sabotage, the integrity of the program hangs in the balance. Veteran voices are calling for transparency, but the presence of hidden agendas threatens to undermine the very unity they claim to protect. At a time when Clark's talent could be transformational, Team USA might be sabotaging itself from the inside. This was supposed to be Team USA's golden era, the perfect blend of veteran dominance and new-gen talent. All eyes were on Caitlin Clark, her long-anticipated arrival, her return from injury, her fresh energy injecting life into a team that's been coasting on legacy for years. But instead of a clean transition, fans are watching something else entirely. Backroom confusion, questionable decisions, and one big, unanswered question. Why is Stephanie White suddenly involved? Let's be real. The second her name came up in connection with the Team USA camp, people started side-eyeing the situation. It wasn't just her presence. It was how it was happening. No formal announcement, no clear title, no defined role. She's just there, hovering, lurking around Team USA's setup with zero transparency. And the moment Sue Bird, one of the most respected, dialed-in voices in American basketball, was asked about it, the alarm bells rang louder. Her response wasn't reassurance. It was hesitation. That silence told the whole story. Sue didn't know what was going on. And if she didn't know, then nobody knows. This isn't just a random roster shakeup. It's a signal that something deeper is happening within the organization, something that even the veterans are being left out of. And that's where this story turns from strange to concerning. Because when someone with no official position starts operating within one of the most prestigious programs in the world without a clear explanation, that's not normal. That's not protocol. That's a power play. And people noticed. Fans, analysts, and insiders immediately started digging into what Stephanie White's involvement could mean. Is this a quiet coaching transition? Is someone behind the scenes installing their picks under the radar? Is this a calculated move by a faction, like the so-called UConn Mafia, to maintain influence even as the player roster evolves? The phrase, UConn Mafia, might sound dramatic, but it's a term that's been floating in basketball circles for a reason. It refers to the long-standing influence of UConn alumni and affiliates in key positions across women's basketball. And while no one's suggesting a full-blown conspiracy, the pattern is hard to ignore. Familiar faces show up again and again, on the bench, in the boardrooms, around the decision-making tables. And now, Stephanie White enters the scene with no clarity and no apparent merit-based appointment. Of course people are suspicious. Caitlin Clark's entrance in a Team USA should be the headline. But instead, her moment is being overshadowed by confusion and backroom politics. That speaks volumes about where the program's priorities are, or at least where the power players are trying to shift them. It doesn't help that Caitlyn's not just a typical rookie. She's a generational player. Her talent is undeniable. Her leadership is emerging, and her impact on the court is matched only by her influence off it. So when someone like her walks into a team camp and immediately senses tension or strange dynamics, that can change everything. You can't build chemistry in a room where everyone's wondering who's really in charge. And that's the other problem. This isn't just about one staffing decision. It's about the culture. A culture that now seems more focused on protecting influence than preparing for international dominance. The coaching staff should be unified. The plan should be transparent. The decisions should be explained. But none of that is happening here. Instead, fans are left to speculate. Players are left to question. And the overall vibe? Mistrust. That's not the environment you want when your biggest star is recovering from injury and stepping into one of the most high-pressure roles in sports. Caitlin Clark deserves a team that's focused on winning, not navigating internal politics. She needs leadership she can trust, stability, clarity, not whispers in the background about who's really making the calls. And what about the rest of the players? They see this too. These aren't rookies who blindly follow orders. They're professional athletes who know when something's off. They talk. They observe. They hear the silence where there should be answers. And when veterans like Sue Bird start expressing subtle doubt, the younger players hear that loud and clear. The question then becomes, who is this really serving? If Stephanie White was brought in because she earned it, because her experience and leadership bring value, then say that. Make it official. Be transparent. But the longer this stays in the shadows, the more it looks like favoritism, alliances, or worse, sabotage. That word's been floating around for a reason. Sabotage doesn't always look like outright betrayal. Sometimes it's quiet moves behind the scenes. Shifting influence, undermining cohesion, protecting a legacy that no longer fits the future. And when those kinds of moves get exposed, even halfway, they shatter trust. Trust between players and coaches. Trust between leadership and fans. And most importantly, trust in the system itself. And if there's one thing Team USA cannot afford heading into competition, it's instability. The irony is this team should be unstoppable. You've got a blend of historic talent and next-gen stars, the kind of depth other countries dream of. But none of that matters if the leadership at the top is fractured, or worse, dishonest. What's wild is how easy this would have been to avoid. A simple explanation, a press release, some kind of structure or transparency around White's involvement. But the fact that none of that was offered, even as people raise concerns, that silence is the answer. And it's not a good one. People aren't paranoid for asking questions. They're protective of the game, of the players, of the integrity of Team USA. And they should be, because if no one holds leadership accountable now, these kinds of decisions will just keep happening. And each one chips away at the foundation that was built over decades of hard-earned respect. At the end of the day, this isn't about disliking Stephanie White. It's about demanding clarity. It's about making sure that when you wear that Team USA badge, whether you're on the court or behind the bench, you're there because you earned it, not because someone quietly slid your name into the mix behind closed doors. So what now? Fans are waiting. Players are watching. And the longer the leadership stalls, the more credibility they lose. It's not enough to win gold if the team is broken underneath. Because the real victory comes from unity, from trust, from knowing that everyone involved got there the right way. That's what Caitlin Clark deserves. That's what the fans deserve. That's what the game deserves. If you're with us, drop your take in the comments. Does this feel like a strategic decision or a red flag that needs to be addressed? Do you think Team USA's leadership owes the public a real answer? We want to hear it. Hit like if you're tired of the silence. Share this with someone who's been side-eyeing this whole situation, and make sure you're subscribed. Because we're not done watching. And this story, it's still unfolding. And here's the thing. They thought no one would notice. They thought fans wouldn't care. That names like Stephanie White would slide under the radar. That the public would be too busy talking about Caitlin Clark's jump shot to pay attention to the coaching staff quietly shifting in the background. But that's where they messed up. Because this fan base, they're not passive. Not anymore. This is a new generation of fans, and they see everything. They follow the rosters. They know the history. They track the coaching trees. And when someone shows up unannounced, when Sue Bird herself gets hit with a question she can't answer, you better believe that triggers alarm bells across the entire basketball world. Let's talk about Sue for a minute. We're not just throwing her name around for drama. She is Team USA. She's been in those locker rooms. She's helped shape the culture. She's one of the most trusted voices the program has ever had. And in one interview, her hesitation said more than a press conference ever could. She didn't endorse it. She didn't dismiss it. She questioned it. That one moment blew the lid off everything, because if she's not in the loop, then what kind of loop are we even talking about? Who's making these decisions? And why are they being made in secret? It's not like Team USA is some scrappy underdog that can afford to just figure it out as they go. This is a global powerhouse. The women's national team is held to a higher standard, and rightly so. The expectation is excellence on and off the court. That means clarity, structure, leadership, and above all, transparency. So, when you bring in someone like Stephanie White, a coach with a solid resume, but no formal announcement, no defined role, and no communication about why she's suddenly inserted into one of the most high-stakes team environments on the planet, you create chaos. And in this case, you create suspicion, because this isn't happening in a vacuum. There's context here, real context. The so-called UConn Mafia isn't a conspiracy theory. It's a label that fans and analysts have been using for years to describe the outsized influence of a specific group tied to UConn. From players to coaches to administrators, there's a clear pattern. And people are finally starting to talk about it openly. Stephanie White, for the record, is not from that pipeline. But her arrival still plays into that same pattern of inner circle decision-making, where access to the team feels less like a whisper network. You know the type. If you're in, you're in. If you're not, good luck. And the scary part? That kind of environment doesn't just impact who sits on the bench. It can erode everything. Team chemistry, trust between players and coaches, confidence in the leadership. These aren't small details. These are the core pieces of a championship squad. And right now, they're being tampered with in the name of what? Loyalty? Favors? Hidden agendas? There's a word for that, and it's not strategy. Now let's talk about Caitlin Clark again, because through all this, the person who should be at the center of the conversation is getting sidelined. And not because of her game, not because of any controversy she caused, but because the people around her can't get their house in order. This is her moment. She's the most talked about player in the country. She's coming back from injury. She's entering one of the most high-pressure, high-profile teams in the world. And instead of walking into a secure, focused environment, she's walking into a fog of politics, cliques, and whispers. That's not just unfair, it's dangerous. How is she supposed to thrive when no one can even say who's on the coaching staff and why? How do you build trust in a system that won't even explain itself to its own veterans? And you know what's worse? This drama doesn't stay behind closed doors anymore. Every strange moment, every awkward interaction, every vague interview, it all goes viral. The fans see it, the players see it, the sponsors see it, and it all builds up into this one giant question that just keeps echoing louder. What is going on at Team USA? Because this isn't just about who calls plays or who runs drills at practice. This is about who's really in control, and whether the people in control are making decisions that benefit the team or protect their own status. And let's be real, if Caitlin Clark underperforms, if the team chemistry is off, if the program falls short in competition, people are going to look back at this moment and say we saw it coming. The staffing confusion, the lack of communication, the subtle power struggles, it's all been laid out, and it's all been ignored by the people at the top. So now the fans are doing what the leadership won't, holding them accountable. That's why this story is blowing up. Not because people want drama, but because they want answers. They want fairness. They want a program that's built on performance, not politics. That rewards the best, not the best connected. Stephanie White might be a great coach. That's not even the debate. The debate is about transparency, about honesty, about process. If there's a reason she's being integrated into the team, then say it. Don't sneak her in like it's some behind-the-scenes maneuver. That just fuels distrust. And once that distrust sets in, it spreads fast. Because if there's one thing the Team USA brand can't afford right now, it's division. Division between players, between fans and the federation, between new talent and old leadership. That's how dynasties crumble from the inside out. So yes, this matters. A lot. It matters for Caitlin Clark. It matters for the veterans who built this program. It matters for the players who are watching this unfold and wondering what it means for their future. And it matters for the fans who have every right to expect clarity from an institution they support. This isn't petty gossip. This is accountability, and it's long overdue. The longer the leadership stays silent, the more power they lose, the more trust they forfeit, the more fractured the team becomes, not just on the court, but in the culture that surrounds it. They could fix this. They still can. But that would mean stepping up, owning the decisions, explaining them, making the process clear and fair and open, and maybe even admitting that things were handled poorly. But well, that's the part no one knows yet. Because so far, the playbook has been silence, deflection, and hoping people move on. But we're not moving on. Fans are engaged. Players are watching. And the game is bigger than any one coach or clique or hidden power move. And if you're waiting for that truth to magically appear, don't hold your breath. Because what's been made crystal clear in all of this is that the people running the show at Team USA would rather let speculation run wild than offer a straightforward answer. They've chosen confusion over clarity, ambiguity over accountability. And for what? To protect egos? To maintain an internal hierarchy that the rest of us aren't supposed to question? Let's not pretend that Caitlin Clark entering the system was just business as usual. Her arrival disrupted the routine. It exposed just how shaky the foundations have become. You bring in a player with her level of fame, her level of attention, her level of fan investment, and suddenly, every move gets magnified. Every decision is scrutinized. Every whisper becomes a headline. And that is when the cracks in the system start to show. Before Caitlin, Team USA could probably sneak in a Stephanie White type under the radar. Quietly rotate coaching personnel, rely on internal familiarity, call it continuity. But now, that's impossible. The spotlight is too big. The audience is too informed. The fans aren't just watching, they're documenting. They've got receipts. They've got clips. They got timelines. And the fact that this coaching shift is happening right now, right as Caitlin is entering the space, that timing isn't just suspicious, it's symbolic. It symbolizes a power struggle, one between the old guard who've always had control and a new wave of players and fans who are refusing to accept things at face value. And let's talk about that struggle for a second, because it's real. You have the insiders, the people with the connections, the institutional ties, the long-standing relationships that keep them inside the circle no matter what. Then you have the disruptors, young players, outspoken analysts, and fans who actually care about merit-based systems. People who don't want to see hidden agendas shaping national teams. People who want to see the best coaching, the best rosters, and decisions made based on actual basketball, not networking. And in the middle of it all, Caitlin Clark. She's not just a new addition. She's a symbol of the shift that's coming whether the current leadership likes it or not. A shift toward openness, toward new blood, toward a generation that doesn't blindly trust the system just because it's wearing red, white, and blue. She didn't ask for this drama, but now she's standing at the center of it. And that's dangerous, because she's already dealing with pressure. She's coming back from injury. She's adapting to a new level of competition. And now, she's expected to navigate a team dynamic that feels more like a reality show than a national program. The system should be clearing the path for her to thrive, not cluttering it with power games. And here's what no one's saying out loud, but everyone's thinking. If this situation spirals, Caitlin becomes the scapegoat. If the team underperforms, the headlines won't blame the coaching confusion. They won't call out the shady decisions or behind-the-scenes drama. They'll question Caitlin's readiness, her leadership, her performance, because that's how these systems protect themselves. They absorb the credit when things go right, and they redirect the blame when things fall apart. That's why this story matters. Because it's not just about one staff member being added. It's about a system that would rather protect itself than protect its players. A system that's now asking its brightest young star to carry not just the weight of competition, but the weight of internal dysfunction too. And let's not ignore how calculated the silence has been from leadership. They've had every chance to explain this. They've seen the speculation. They've heard the questions. They've watched the discourse unfold in real time. But instead of stepping in, instead of clarifying Stephanie White's role, instead of showing respect to the players and the fans, they've stayed quiet. That's not professionalism. That's arrogance. That's an organization that thinks it doesn't owe anyone an explanation, not even its own team. And it's that exact attitude that's now under fire. Because you can't demand loyalty and respect when you refuse to earn it. You can't ask fans to believe in the process when the process is hidden behind closed doors. You can't expect players to feel supported when even veterans like Sue Bird are left guessing. And the longer this goes on, the more damage it does. Not just to the team chemistry, not just to Caitlin's development, but to the credibility of Team USA itself. Because people are starting to realize, if this kind of internal politicking is happening now, how long has it been happening? How many decisions over the years were made not because they were right, but because they were convenient? How many voices were silenced? How many players overlooked? How many opportunities handed out for reasons that had nothing to do with basketball? This is what happens when leadership gets too comfortable. They stop explaining. They stop listening. They start assuming no one will challenge them. But that era is over. You can't operate like it's 2004 in 2025. This generation of fans is informed. They're invested. They know when something doesn't add up. And when you ignore them, when you brush them off, that's when the backlash grows. It's already happening. The fan base is speaking up. The media is connecting dots. The players, especially the younger ones, are seeing it for what it is. A broken system trying to protect itself from change. And they're not going to play along forever. There's a decision that needs to be made. Does Team USA want to evolve? But does it want to implode? Because right now, it's standing on a cliff. On one side, there's a future where talent is prioritized, transparency is valued, and players like Caitlin Clark are supported in the way they should be. On the other side, there's more of this. More confusion, more mismanagement, more public distrust. And guess what? No number of gold medals will protect the program from that kind of long-term damage. The brand doesn't survive without the fans. The players don't thrive without real leadership. And the legacy doesn't mean anything if it's being protected by silence and shadow games. So here we are. Stephanie White is still present, still unexplained. Sue Bird still hasn't gotten a real. And Caitlin Clark? She's trying to focus on the game, but the game around her is getting messier by the day. And unless leadership steps up now, this won't be a one-time controversy. This will become the new normal. A team constantly distracted by questions that should have been answered from day one. It didn't have to be this way. But now that we're here, fans are right to demand clarity. They're right to expect better. And they're absolutely right to hold people accountable for the choices being made behind this. If you've been following this and wondering if your instincts were right, they are. You're not imagining the weird vibes. You're not overanalyzing. This is messy, and that's not on the players. That's on the people running the show. So if you're watching all this unfold and thinking, why does it feel like something deeper is going on? You're not alone. Drop your thoughts in the comments. What do you think Stephanie White's role really is? Should Team USA leadership come clean? How do you think this affects Caitlin Clark's future on the team? Like the video if you're done with the silent treatment. Share it with someone who's been watching this with the same side eye. And subscribe, because you already know we're not done here. Not even close.